in bigger, more established brands that have been doing this for longer and know what they're doing, they have a
Hmm.
consistent voiceover.
Yeah.
They have a character or a personality or a sound, a voice, a brand. They have mnemonics and music as well, but they have like that spokesperson voiceover that they've identified, and they're taking it seriously and they're consistent with it. And then other brands that are newer and just emerging, every single project they have a new voice on it, and it's just
Yeah.
that just shows that they've been doing it for less time and they're just less kind of organized with it.
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. I'm your host, Jody Krangle, and this podcast will discuss just how sound influences our behavior. I generally talk about this in the context of advertising and marketing, but there are other places this is important too. I really feel that it plays a much more important role in our lives than maybe we realize. So let's delve a little deeper. This is the first part of my interview with Nick Crane. My next guest has been making music since he was 8 and making films since he was 11. In September of 2019, he launched Racket Club, that's spelled Racket, a boutique music production studio focusing on original composition and music supervision for brands such as Nike, Verizon, Toyota, and Ford. He also composes for short films, and his latest score for Jamila was released on Nowness in April of 2019. Nick Crane can be found at racketclub.tv or at Racket Club Music on Instagram. And I know that anything he has to say about sound is going to be pretty interesting. So perk up your ears and listen in. Welcome, Nick. Thanks so much for taking some time to talk to me today.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.
It's a
We
great
need
thing to
people
do right
talk to
now.
now. Yeah. So I want to ask you how you're doing, first off, because weirdness abounds.
Yeah, it certainly does. I'm doing well. Doing well. Luckily, work has been steady,
That's good.
which is, I'm super, super thankful for that. And, just really just feeling lucky because a lot of people can't work at all. A lot of people are in
Hmm.
much worse situations for a lot of reasons. I'm healthy. I've got work going. That takes my mind off things. So that's
Sure.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel for you there. Yeah. The voiceover work, thankfully, it's a little bit slower than it has been, but it's still
Sure.
there. And yeah, and like you, I feel quite lucky that I get to do what I love to do still, and I'm healthy. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's
we're doing
that's
okay.
good. Yeah. So to start this all off, I want to ask you how you got into your love of music, your love of audio in general. What's your background?
Oh my God. What a question. I I started writing music when I was in high school. I
Hmm.
started playing music when I was much younger. I mean, I've always been trying to play music. My parents have recordings of me when I was, a toddler making up songs and things,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's the same for my
it's just
parents, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They
I
like
was
to hold
singing
on
when
to
I was
those
like
things.
6. Yeah.
But yeah, no, for just forever, I've always been into it. And I was in a band for a long time in New York.
Hmm.
We'd just basically play around the tri-state area and have big parties for our concerts, and we had a little following, and it was just a lot of fun. But I, eventually I needed to make some money and figure out how to do that. And I got into advertising through the post world.
Hmm.
I was a post producer for many years, and I figured I had a friend who was at an editorial house and that worked on commercials and short films, and so I he got me a job there, and then I kind of worked my way over into the music side of things through that door.
Great. Yeah. We were talking earlier about directories that have already created music and stuff like that for commercials and films and whatever. So, seeing as this is what you do, you create music for advertising and films and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, how do you differentiate what you do from those services?
Um, I'm I and Racket Club are more focused on bespoke composition,
Hmm.
and more than just composition, bespoke solutions for brands' music needs. So that could be anything. That could be a collaboration with an existing artist, a popular artist, an indie artist. It could be a search, it could be finding something to license, or it could be composition. The idea is that, you know, if you work with a directory or like a stock music house, which is great. There's a lot of great ones, but with Racket Club, you have the option of doing more. You can approach the music from a variety of angles, and it can be very much customized to your project. That's what kind of we do differently.
Mm-hmm. And you partner with artists to do this as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been supervising for a lot of years, and I have a lot of friends at record labels and publishing houses, and I have a lot of direct artist connections too. And I love to work that way. I just did a project that just inked yesterday with a great artist named Matt Gray, he's an Australian musician, and I just heard him on Spotify somewhat randomly, and he had this amazing album out. I listened to it obsessively for a few weeks, and then I just shot him an email being like, do you have any interest in composing for film or anything? And he did, and we just did a project together. So it's a cool organic way to meet and work with independent musicians too.
Wonderful. What kind of a project? Is it okay to ask? You don't have to give me specifics or anything, but was it a film? Was it advertising? What was it for?
It was a commercial.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like,
Great.
he was totally into it. He's a really nice guy, and then I get to be a fan of somebody and then go from that to working with them, which is cool, and supporting their career too, which is nice.
Yeah, and musicians definitely need that support, especially
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah, because there's no way to get paid as a musician. I mean, you have to be touring a lot and selling a lot of
Yeah.
tickets, and that's pretty much it these days. Like that's
Yeah.
the way to make money as a musician, or you get placements in commercials, and
Yeah,
then
the
that's
licensing.
that supports your next album recording or whatever. Like that's how you do it, because the record industry, the record label industry, getting a big record deal is just like it's so shrunken from what it used to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. And honestly, I don't know if it's all it was cracked up to be in the first place, but
I don't know. Back in the
but yeah,
50s, 60s, maybe the glory days,
maybe
70s,
when they actually invested in artist development,
exactly.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although it's interesting, I've been seeing the whole great equalizer of everyone being in their home studios now. So it's been really interesting seeing what, famous artists have in their own homes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not any better than what we have.
Oh, totally. With technology, I mean, you can do so much more. You don't need that investment necessarily.
It's
but
true.
It's still hard to make money.
Yeah, definitely. Just going back to this whole thing of getting artists and companies together, what advantages are there to having an artist actually compose something specifically for your project?
Oh, well, I think that's such a great thing for a brand, because it just gives you kind of an integrity, I mean,
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
integrity is hard to come by in advertising. I
Mm-hmm.
think originality is hard to come by too. But they're two of the most valuable things you can have on a project. And if you pair up with an artist who's writing something for you that also has their own following and their own reputation, it's like a cross-branding kind of thing. It's like you're cross-promoting, which is cool. And
Yeah.
it's a good look. It helps the artist. It shows that your brand supports the arts,
Always a good thing.
and it can be a real good win-win.
Yeah, definitely. How does this help a company with their audio brand? I'm assuming that you choose artists or types of music that match with the company's particular branding. Do you sit down with them and have this kind of discussion with the company to, decide what kind of music and what kind of sound and feel they're after?
Yeah, of course. That's the first step. And companies, by the time they're talking to me, they have a very specific brand identity. You know, that I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's been well hashed out, and so that's a fairly easy part of the process because they know what their identity is, and then it's just about finding a musician that pairs with that. You know, so
Yeah,
they kind of know what they are, and then it's my job to find somebody that matches that personality.
that's great.
Yeah.
Do you ever have clients approach you when they don't know this information, when they're just figuring it out themselves?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. And
What do you tell them?
I just try to be really open minded and try to push the boundaries a little bit. I oftentimes, will think of an artist. I'll have ideas of things that could work, in my imagination that I think might be a good pairing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it might be a good fit for them. And I just run through suggestions and I like when that's the case because I get to have a little more voice in the process, um, which is always nice. I'm a creative person. I like to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's nice when I get to kind of pitch ideas, in that case. But I'd say for me, though, like 90% of the time, they kind of know what they are when they come into it. So
So
I'm
they're,
more somebody who's helping them find what they like, find a match,
mm-hmm.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot that goes into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of brands have, a lot of the brands I work with anyway have people in charge of that. They have put so much thought into that by the time they're talking to me, and then
Hmm.
I'm the one who's helping them execute.
That's really good, actually, because a lot of companies that I've come in contact with, unfortunately, have not devoted a lot of time or effort to the audio end of things. And so when they start doing that, it's sort of, um, it starts out as an afterthought and then they realize how important it is.
Oh my God, yeah. No, I completely relate to the afterthought comment. Like it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it's so important. It's when you see a commercial or something, it's half of what you're experiencing is the audio, and there's so little attention given to that, especially the music and to your point or to your angle, the voiceover and that
Hmm.
personality.
Yeah, it's very much it's something that should not be an afterthought, but but that often is, unfortunately.
I know. And you see it in bigger, more established brands that have been doing this for longer and know what they're doing. They have a
Hmm.
consistent voiceover.
Yeah,
They have a character or a personality or a sound, a voice, a brand. They have mnemonics and music as well, but they have like that spokesperson voiceover that they've identified and they're taking it seriously and they're consistent with it. And then other brands that are newer and just emerging, every single project they have a new voice on it. And it's just,
yeah.
it just shows that they've been doing it for less time and they're just less kind of organized with it.
Yeah, they're still trying to find their voice, and I'm saying that in
Right.
the larger context of not just the voiceover, but also their entire sound.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious as to your take on what's going on now in particular, because I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a video going around right now that has a series of all of these COVID-19 commercials in one thing that uses the same music, almost all these somber piano music, and then the same kind of voiceover and the same kind of message, and like I'm hearing it multiple times. I'm curious, as from your point of view, what could people do for that kind of a somber, more touchy-feely kind of announcement? What could they do to change it up a little? Because I mean, I'm assuming that you're seeing a lot of what I'm seeing and probably experiencing it in pretty similar ways because you're listening to the sound as much as I am. I'm just curious as to your take on that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been sent that spot, it's and I've been
It's
avoiding watching it because I'm pretty scared that one of my tracks is in there. If it's a
it
compilation,
could
because
be.
at this point we've done several
Hmm.
COVID spots,
Yes.
and unfortunately the brief has been pretty much the same on all of them. It's all hopeful, piano, strings,
Hmm.
sparse, emotive.
Yeah.
Like that's it, and it's so incredible the lack of originality that's happening um, in these spots. But you're starting to see it get better. I think at first everybody was rushing to get messaging out. And
Yeah.
so they weren't putting a lot of thought into the music. They're just like, what makes sense? Okay, piano. What? All right, and so we fielded a lot of those briefs, and we gave them really emotive, hopeful, melancholy piano music, and they were happy with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then at the end, you look back at those spots, and you're just like, oh my God, it's just so generic. But
Yeah.
I've seen some new ones that have come out recently that are way better, and it's I think the best approach right now is to use a classical song, not classical, sorry, a classic song with lyrics about staying together. I heard a David Bowie one recently. I think it was Changes, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
Oh no,
That's actually a good
It was
one.
Under Pressure. It was Under Pressure.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
Bowie
a good one
and,
too.
yeah, and Queen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought that was like the best way to approach it. Like just use something that people can relate to, that makes people happy. Under Pressure, this classic song about struggling and overcoming when you're at your darkest, and that was an example of a really great COVID spot, that's just breaking the mold, doing something a little riskier, a little more positive, a little different. And that's my absolute advice, is to take a risk, commit to something, put the music at, just try to be different and break the mold a little bit, because then you'll be memorable. And that's the whole game,
Yeah, really being memorable, not sounding like everybody else.
I know it seems obvious.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's just shocking how much people are doing that minimal piano thing. I'm over
Yeah. I think a lot of us are over it. Yeah. Actually, almost rather than watching the video, and you don't need to watch the whole video to get the idea of what they're going for, read the comments, because on YouTube, the comments are very revealing. And some of the people that have commented are copywriters and marketing people. And they're commenting on, yeah, we kind of dropped the ball, but we had to do this fast and we only had stock footage and, all of
really?
this, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they're not apologizing for it necessarily, but they're saying, yeah, we could do better and we will do better. And, they're...
Yeah.
They acknowledge.
I'm apologizing to you right now for my involvement, and also to my clients for now, shit talking them essentially. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't swear, but because they're helping me get through this time by paying the bills and getting me involved in projects, and I'm very thankful to be involved and to be sharing my hopeful, sad piano music with the world.
Well, ultimately, I mean, you give clients what they ask for. It's
course.
the same thing, with my voiceover. A client asks me to do something for them, I do it. That's what they wanted. And
do you ever do accents?
I don't tend to, no.
I always wonder if that's a funny request you get as a voiceover.
I'm sure a lot of other voice actors might. Accents are not my thing, really. So
that would be so hard.
Yeah, remaining consistent is the toughest thing. It's interesting, but I think a lot of character actors, a lot of people who do animation and video games and that kind of thing, they're much more used to that kind of request.
Right, it's a specialty, right?
Yeah, exactly. I usually get the, we want warm and friendly and emotive and approachable, and that's the kind of stuff I usually get.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the best way to be, right? Because it's like you're
now,
trying to be yourself and your best version of yourself consistently, and that's
sure. Yeah,
that's a good way to operate.
I've had this conversation with a lot of other people in that, and you probably experience this too. When you're writing a piece of music, and when I'm doing a performance of a particular script, I'm in a completely just like an unnatural situation. Right? Like I'm sitting in a booth with a microphone in my face and headphones on, right? Talking to a wall.
Yeah.
So,
weird.
Yeah, it's weird. So probably the same thing with you. You have to have some kind of a running commentary or some kind of a film going on in your head while you're composing or speaking or whatever. It's theater of the mind for us, as well as the people that we're doing it for.
Yeah, no, totally. I think you've got it worse than me because, like you said, you're speaking to a wall.
Mm,
I'm luckily I usually have a visual to go along with what I'm composing. Best
that's
case
good. Yeah.
scenario, not
Hmm.
always.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I do have to compose using my imagination of what the spot's going to look like or what the film's
Hmm.
going to look like. Um, but for the most part, I get to have something there as a reference, so I can kind of jive with that.
So what do you usually get as a reference? Do they give you the finished commercial, or do they give you the finished movie, or do you just get like a storyboard or something, or general idea of what they're going for?
Yeah, I mean, usually, best case scenario, they give me a working edit, a rough cut of the commercial,
Hmm.
or the film, and worst case scenario, it's at least a storyboard. I get that too. I'd say
Hmm.
50% of the time I get a spot to work against, which is
That's
great.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so helpful
Very
because I mean,
helpful.
otherwise you're in a vacuum. It's almost ridiculous to work like that, but it happens
Mm.
half the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And actually, in the case of voiceover, a lot of it is auditioning before you even get the job. And you have to imagine what the person writing that spec had in their head when they were hoping to find the voice for the spot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
By the way, they
it's,
still don't know what that voice is by the time it
yeah,
gets to you,
exactly.
That's
They'll
just,
know when they
it's
hear it.
you're
Yeah.
guessing at what their guess is, and
Yes.
I can totally relate to that. I mean, when we demo, and when we do searches, you're trying to read the mind of somebody who's not even sure of what they want.
Hmm.
And it's,
Yeah.
it's an intuitive process.
This has been part 1 of our interview. I hope you'll tune in next week for part 2. Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, please take a moment to give the podcast a review. It's greatly appreciated and super helpful. Until next time.